to discuss what this impact this has on housing, real estate, urban infrastructure, the entire composite package. A lot of announcements. I'm sure you'll have reactions to all of them. Maybe the first thing to do is get a quick. Shouldn't you want to say something before we start? We'll first take a quick first reaction from all of you, and then we'll start the discussion. Before that, let's begin.
No, I think this time.
Oh, okay. Prashant, first reaction. How do you? What do you see? Good budget, mediocre budget, yet to decide.
So I would say mediocre budget mostly because I think infrastructure definitely is seeing a lot of investments come in. There is a push on affordable housing through allocation to the NHB, and of course more money in the pocket of the consumer. However, I think what still kind of is lacking is basically supply side dynamics. We have seen the supply of real estate hitting the country dwindle. Over the last 1 year, we've seen almost 60% drop in terms of new launches that are hitting the market, and that clearly is one area which needs some impetus in terms of being able to drive more supply into the market and ease out some price pressures in terms of developers, so that the consumers, where the demand is there but the closures are less. So we are seeing the demand has been there, it's seen an uptick post the budget, post the government coming in, but closures is something that of course hasn't seen an uptick in terms of absorption.
Any first reaction?
I would think that the budget is fairly directional nature, and it's also, I would say, right on intent and right on content as well. Purely from the point of view that I think when the Prime Minister of FMS started to speak, I think it was a very, very relevant and a very important aspect to say that we will not do retrospective tax amendments. So from an overseas investor perspective, that's a very strong statement, and also the fact that that they said that we clearly become looking at a predictable and a stable tax regime to come up there. And in the context of that, if you look at the changes which have been done on the FDI side of it, on the REIT aspect of it, so that kind of clearly helps us from the point of view of liquidity, getting more institutional sector, as well as the access to real estate in India, getting more in the hands of the retail investors also. Because from an REIT perspective, that would help in that direction. And affordable housing also, they've been like, I would say, clearly if you look at it from three perspectives, one is that some development has been identified as one, including the CSR aspect of it, and the second, demand as well there, and it just helps private developers to get in there, and also from the point of view of the fact that FDI is kind of completely exempted, for the minimum requirements that are there around it, and the third from the point of view of keeping creation of that, surplus from the fund rather, 4,000 crore fund with the National Housing Bank, so I mean overall, I think from some of the long-pending demands, are getting done, as part of this. The disappointment has been the indirect taxes, which I think industry is clearly looking at to get done in this budget. There we see a disappointment, on that aspect of it.
Did you expect that? Was the industry expecting that? Or
clearly on the service tax aspect of it and some of the bad side of it, were expected. But there's nothing which has come around that. Even for GST, basically you're saying that there's a policy which will come up there. So to that extent, there's been a kind of a clear disappointment on that side of it, because this is a highly taxed sector, so one would have expected that to happen.
We've had Deepak Parekh and K. Thomas saying that the fact that we've been only 6 weeks in power, and probably they've touched upon all the points, but they haven't really spelled out anything. So maybe we should give the government a little more time to iron out the details.
Absolutely. No, that is the message. It's a right on intent and content, and also some directional nature as well. So one would hope that the March 15 budget, where the government would have kind of spent time adequately in power as well, where they would be able to iron out a number of things in that direction.
Aspects are there, plus things like skill development and tourism was very well expected. I would say the time that the government has had was little, and the task that they have and the shape in which the economy that they got from the earlier government, I think this is the
How do you rate the budget and what do you think are the positives?
I think the budget is very lot of good things. A very clear statement on retrospective tax amendment, comforting a lot of business community at large, including the foreign investors. The proposal for having the advanced ruling mechanism for resident taxpayers a very, very welcome move. Now, coming back to something which would affect, the individual taxpayers, the basic exemption increase to some extent, maybe some more money, some extra money to everyone. The deduction for housing loan interest for self-occupied property, I think it was a long pending expectation. The threshold, the ceiling is increased from 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs. The RDIT is a very interesting proposals there, to treat the investments, at par with equities, listed equities, where, gains over 12 months would be tax exempt and, 15% tax rate for short-term capital gains. So all this looks very positive.
For the industry, what was the industry expecting and what has been done?
So, one of the expectations was, the surcharge part. There was an expectation that this government will probably do away with the surcharge. That has not happened. But I think, we had to work a little bit tightrope also in terms of, the revenue estimates and, and manage that, with whatever he has done or whatever he has offered, he has retained that surcharge, which a lot of people were expecting, that he would go away. But otherwise than that, I think very much in line with, or maybe more than what people expected. As I mentioned, the advanced ruling, very, very comforting to the business community at large.
And now we have the industry with us, but we love that. What was the industry expecting and are you satisfied with that?
See, we expect many things every year, and the good news is that this year, some things that we were expecting happened, though they may not have happened in the quantum that we had asked for and in the way we had asked for. But having said that, things have happened, and this is the first step, it's the first budget of the government,
and I must compliment the finance minister because it sets a positive tone. It sets a tone, a feeling of that, okay, we know that you have concerns and pain. We know that this industry, this sector can generate jobs, it can contribute to the GDP, it can contribute to manufacturing. So this has been accepted. So much so that the finance minister has gone on to say in the budget speech that we understand the recommendations of the housing industry and we will look into this going forward. He said something to that extent. So I think it's a very, very positive step from the government side. And we all know the goodies that have come in this budget. Our concern is that the mission of the Prime Minister 2022 tier 4, tier 3 locations, we are doing affordable housing in Bulandshahr, Moradabad, Bijnor, Kanpur. Over there, it's not an FSI game because people don't want to live in high rises over there. They want to live in ground or ground plus one or something like that. So it's not an FSI game. So we always were shy of this 50,000 square meter limit. So now, with this having gone, we can actually access that capital. But that's not enough. We need to have cheaper debt. We need to have more income tax. ATIA would be a great boon to this sector.
And ATIA did perform the first round.
The first round they did ATIA B.
Yeah.
We are saying ATIA, which is infrastructure actually.
Mona, when you look at the industry, you're talking housing on one side, infrastructure on the other. You're flanked by both of them on both sides. When you talk about infrastructure, do you think there's enough capital in the country? We are talking about, they've opened up FDI, they are talking about REITs, they are talking about a lot of, making some amount of capital available. Do you think that between housing and infrastructure, what they've given, is it sufficient? And will the consumer, and today we represent, as Magic Bricks, we represent the consumer, when will the consumer start feeling the change?
So in terms of, India is a capital shortage country, so that's a given. So we have to make do with the resources that we have. I think the government, what it can do is create an enabling environment. So on the infrastructure trust side, they've taken some steps. They are also saying that banks can lend to infrastructure on a long-term basis. That's another thing which they've done. Affordable housing, they have said that okay, fine, you can have FDI. It doesn't conform to it doesn't need to conform to the size requirements. And but of course, like Mr. Anand said, that there is still that issue of not having the infrastructure status and the tax benefits. To make the commercials workable for an affordable housing project. So yes and no, I would say. So there have been some good steps, but whether it addresses the entire problem, probably not, because a lot of infrastructure development needs to happen in the country. So there is allocation for road network, there is allocation for power and water and urban renewal. But whether it's enough, I don't think for several years. I think additionally much more will need to be done.
Dr. Swarup, when we talked about JNNURM and when it came, there was a huge amount of excitement around that. That if the cities can become engines, at least we renew our cities so they become engines of growth. and clearly the thought process is still running. But JNNURM did not achieve the heights that it was supposed to achieve, probably because we did not have the mechanism to check whether these projects were successful and what were the metrics of that success.
Actually, one keeps on talking about shortage of resources, especially the kind of monetary resources one is talking about. I do not quite agree with that. Unfortunately, it so happens, and this is what I have been watching for the last 3 years especially, that even though you had the resources available with you, you did not employ them. You do not have the wherewithal to really see whether the monies that are being put into the kind of works are being well spent. If you look at JNNURM for that matter, the way the monies have been spent, basically we have been building up the garbage carrying capacity.
We bought
that's
buses.
something which is visible. We got some buses, we purchased that. But we never tried to look into the kind of subsurface infrastructure to put the pipelines which were choked, courtesy our communication companies who mercilessly dug the roadsides around and then put all the mud right there in the pipelines that were there. So nobody really bothered about such things. Even now also, let's say about 38,000 crores of rupees have been put to NHAI. We have numerous examples. We have cleaned Ganga Abhiyan, we have cleaned Jamuna Abhiyan, we have cleaned that Abhiyan. Where has all the money gone? Who has seen actually that whole money being spent there properly? So one is basically clean the slate. Number two, put the implementation machinery in order. Now, reacting back to certain other things, let me also tell you, way back in 1996, I was as gung-ho as Pitambar is to get the industry status for construction industry. And we thought that if we get the industry status for construction industry, this will be the panacea to all kind of trouble that we have there. Believe you me, Pitambar, we got the industry status for construction industry. Fortunately for us, Mr. G.V. Ramakrishna used to be the chairman of Construction Industry Development Council, who was also intimately connected with Ministry of Finance, and we got that notification. Having gotten that notification, when I went to the banks, they said, perfectly fine. Somebody is now saying on the paper that you are beautiful. But fact is, have you put your house in order? Are the risk elements clear? Lending is a very different ballgame altogether. We cannot lend to you because the risk factors still remain where they are. So then I had to go to the insurance companies, I had to create a model called grading of construction entities and many other things. But believe you me, a banker operates on his own terms. He doesn't lend it to you merely because he got the infrastructure status. What is needed here in this?
No, I'm talking about the cost of lending.
No, I'm saying even the cost of
RBI's risk weightage will come down.
Even the cost of lending, the prudential lending norms laid down by RBI very clearly say that you have PLR and plus minus 3%. That's all the envelope that you got. And that is actually played around with because that's the cost of money. Even a bank has to pay the cost of money. Let's understand, money is commodity for a bank who's trading that. It's not something which is available to them just like that. So the limited point that I'm trying to make here is that we have to put ourselves into the act. And this is where I quite agree with you that it's not only the vision of this government, it is the combined vision of everyone. And I can tell you for sure that if something is going to pull out this country from the kind of morose situation that it is in today, if something is going to provide employment to the young persons who are moving around on the streets today, believe you me, it is going to be construction industry coupled with the real estate industry, which is nothing but basically the first cousin, or you can say
that's what the FM readiness means today.
Because
all the boys and girls will get employed by
that is the only way you can get it.
Yes.
Now, what I expect from the finance minister, he has done a tremendous job in 40 days' time. When you have all kind of political tribulations going around, putting up the ministers in position, I think he has done a tremendous job. Let's compliment him for that. But let us also understand something. The budget is just only a 1.1 day situation. The business of governance goes on for 364 days. So whatever little time that we have got with us, my suggestion to the government will be, let us clean the house first. That spring cleaning is absolutely necessary. We are talking about skill development. we can pour in huge amounts of money into skill development. My council has been into skill development for last 2 decades. But skill development to whom? For whom? The young persons who will be imparted the skill. But if the business does not have enough employment opportunities for them, if Gitambar cannot construct 5 more projects tomorrow, even if best of the trained persons will be just loitering around on the street and will be wasting that. There's one thing of which I am slightly critical, and being an IIT graduate myself, and I graduated when there were only 5 IITs. We have 13 or 14 or God knows how
And
many.
5 more now.
10 more are coming, 5 more are coming now. Now, my humble submission to Honorable Finance Minister and everybody concerned is that please do not make IITs street side. Please do not make that. And IIT is IIT today because of the students it has, but even before, because of the teachers that it had. And even the 13 IITs that you have today and many other IIMs that have been created, they do not have credible faculty members nor the systems in position. Why exactly are we putting good money behind such kind of a thing? Somebody's cockeyed idea. You know, it sounds very glamorous when one says we have 21 IITs, 35 IITs. Have you ever heard anybody telling that we have 20 Oxfords or 35 MITs? No, that is not the point.
Prashant, you are in touch with the retail buyers, and they are the ones who have been raising a lot of questions. Neha, if you could just pick up one out of each of us. We have many segments of questions that they have asked. They've asked one of the biggest concerns, and I think there's something about regulation they've asked about. Everyone, the retail investor was looking at some kind of grievance, redressal, regulation, real estate regulation, some direction in that direction, so that he would be protected. And for the last 5-6 years, the retail buyer has been rogered by a lot of.
It's happening in the monsoon session. Budget ke saath koi connection nahi hai.
Right, but they have been asked. See, as far as the larger audience is concerned, they feel this is a panacea to many of their problems. So we thought we'll just highlight the kind of queries that people are asking. You can respond to them, right?
One of the queries which Mukesh Kumar Datta has asked, that what will the government do for the innocent home buyers, or even for those investors who are buying retail commercial property, as builders took the money from the buyer and they have kept quiet for the years and not doing anything except giving them excuses or buying time from them. So buyers
basically delayed projects.
Yeah.
What they are actually raising.
You want me to answer that?
Please. Delayed. When a project is delayed, a consumer has no means of addressing it. How does he respond?
No, I think we are much better governed, self-governed than we were about 5 years ago. There are penalty clauses. They should exercise it. They should push the developer to exercise to pay them penalty for delayed construction. I know developers who are paying penalty for delayed projects. Having said that, the real estate regulatory bill will be tabled in this monsoon session. In our demand, industry's demand is that all stakeholders should be made a part of this bill.
Including the approval authorities.
Including the approval authorities. Why? Because when I have completed my building or I want a plinth certificate, then I have to go back to the authority. So right now, if my building is ready and I want an occupancy certificate and the approval authority decides to sit on it for 2 years, I can't give it to my customer for no fault of mine. So therefore, they must be made a part of this regulatory bill. Also the banks and the customers. Because like there are different developers, you can't say all builders are the same and they don't get possession. I say all customers are also not the same. There have been instances of blackmail by various customers, and I have been a victim of one of many such instances. So we want that when we also have a grievance against any of these stakeholders, like they want to have a grievance, we also want the regulatory bill to come in, but in its present form, it does not include all stakeholders in an equal form. So very well, you cannot punish all developers because of what some developers are doing. They should be answerable, but it should be a balanced act. That's what we are asking for, and it should have all stakeholders. In this monsoon session, we are very positive that this bill comes through, and we are as excited about it as our customers are.
Prashant, one of the things that has happened is that, especially Noida, Greater Noida, leading the kind of disputes that have come up. I mean, neither the consumer nor the developer was involved here. It is the authority. The authority has given out land and then said that now all these provisions are not above board. So the third instance of the, that it is near the Noida, the Okta Park, the protected area, has actually eroded the consumer's confidence to a large extent. While this is not strictly a budget issue, I thought since you guys are here and all the relevant stakeholders are here, how does a consumer respond to something like this? And is the consumer's right protected here? Or should there be something more to protect the consumer?
What about the developers?
I'll come to that.
They are also suffering.
Actually, I think give you an answer.
Yeah.
On this.
Yeah.
There are a couple of ways that one can really look at the solution of such kind of problems. And I think what Vidambar says is absolutely right.
They are as much a victim as the consumer.
Absolutely
yes,
right.
absolutely.
And no.
Which I mentioned by the way.
And I do not really believe in innocent customers. It is almost like innocent divorcees or homely and convent educated girls who know everything. There's something like that. All right. So lighter way apart. I think the easier method that if you are going to go litigious way is not going to help. If you go to the consumer courts, it is not going to work. So there has to be quasi-judicial processes that will have to be brought in. And my suggestion, both to the customers as well as the developers, as well as the kind of the governments, state governments, is that for such kind of eventualities, they must have institutional arbitration resorted to. That clause needs to be built in there. The moment that clause is there, and if somebody really tries to play hooky, then the whole thing goes to the arbitrators who are, through statute, who are there in position, and they are part of that contract itself. And why I am saying that it should not be given to the individuals, it should go to the institutions, so that there is some sanctity and there is some control over the people who are taking the decision there. And then one can expect a very fair decision coming. Somebody can really get into the things. It's not going to be lengthy, cumbersome, and costly like the kind of court cases are. It's going to be fast, quick, easy, and satisfying everybody for that matter. So I think this is going to be one solution. Interestingly, I'm telling you, this is something which we've already put in position. More than 70 cases have been sorted out. The Construction Industry Arbitration Council is exclusively an institutional arbitration mechanism. That is precisely what we are practicing today. And the normal time of dispute resolution, even for the most complicated cases, has never been more than 8 months.
Is real estate industry also part of that?
If they choose to. If they choose to. This is where basically it is the real estate industry, CREDI or somebody, or even at the individual level, when you are drafting out a buyer's agreement or seller's agreement, whatever you call it, make that as a part. As a matter of fact, this is going to give a lot of confidence to the customer also. He knows that there is a kind of a body where he can go for redressal. And this is a body which is a neutral body, which has been backed up by the government for that matter. It has certain sanctity, and that's how we can really do it.
We are doing it in CREDI also. We have a retired Supreme Court judge sitting on the redressal forum, on the consumer grievance redressal forum. And we are trying to make an inroad into that, and industry, the best part would be if it is self-covered and self-disciplined. The regulatory bill will definitely help, but it shouldn't open another window of litigation like Dr. Surupari rightly said, and can just go on and on and on.
Yeah.
I think just want to make a deliberate point on this, that what we're discussing is a part B. When the situation is already gone to that level, and then how do we address it better or easier in that sense of it. I think the most important part would be to see that how do we prevent such kind of cases to happen in the first place. And that is stemming from the reasons that if you analyze the issues, property is the most litigated subject in any case, otherwise as well in the country. So when you don't have a comprehensive and a kind of a coordinated master planning being done for the town or let's say for the city in the first place, which would take into account at least some basic approvals coming in place. Nobody understands the reason why we have to run around so many authorities, to get some approvals or cycloside papers, which are exactly the same, for most of the developers to that extent. But you do get it after some time, and you do get it in the same way. Apart from in very few cases, you would have some, let's say, additional conditions inserted, which also we sometimes find are present in some other regulation or already a regulation, but you just kind of emphasize on that. And the other thing would be that from the point of view of the land records perspective, if you have digitization happening at a rapid pace there, and also zones earmarked for it, because if you define the density well, if you define the height which you can go to well, if you define this FSI norm, because we've been coming up with these in a kind of, you can say, sporadic manner, in a sporadic but some kind of a predictable manner as well, that it goes on increasing only. And also I would say that what the Tambar and has also said, point that that if we have the RE bill balance coming up there, so then you have the developers protected, that from their point of view, if any challenge or any issue comes up, they're also as much a party to the process as the consumer would be. And so prevention is, I think, the most important aspect of it. Of course, that's a structural change, and that also involves a lot more effort. That is why perhaps it gets not that much of attention. We keep on trying to say that what's happened to others, how do we react to them, knee-jerk reactions to come up with few things which are half baked, half cooked, but want to push it down to somebody's kind of there.
So even a buyer's or a seller's agreement, shouldn't there be a standard
document? I was just coming to that 2 points on this side, that from some of the standard documents that we see right now getting exchanged, most of it, apart from commercials, could be at least a model document be available.
No, we made a standard, Neeraj, we made a standard document in CREDAI, and somebody took it to Competition Commission. There's cartelization. ये देखो सब इकट्ठे मिलके वही agreement बना रहे हैं. अब क्या करो? बोलो.
No, that's of course.
But the number, this is where you have to understand something. That any arbitration or any dispute resolution, even though being executed by a retired Chief Justice of some court, whatever, you still are an industry association, quote unquote association. And therefore you are an interest group.
We should go to somebody who
you have to go to a third party, because you have to be like Caesar's wife. It's not only going to be the honesty that you have to practice, it has to be displayed also. So therefore you should not try to do such things in-house. It has no value actually.
It's a good suggestion.
Take it to an independent third party,
Exactly.
neutral.
But we've had reasonable success on that, Dr. Sarupa. काफी अच्छा.
No, I'm not denying.
So we put peer pressure.
I'm not denying that. What I'm trying to tell you is that this has worked. This may continue working, but there could be improvement. This could even be better and more transparent, and confidence is still. That is what.
I think the last, one point on the consumer side as well, because it gets repeatedly discussed and spoken as well. I think, from a consumer standpoint also, if there's a difficulty that we have with the customer, that the customer is not intelligent enough, or let's say is not aware enough, that side of it. I think there's one liability with the consumer itself, also to be aware before he gets into such a commercial transaction, from that point of view. If not aware directly, then we seek counsel, with relevant agencies, and kind of get aware of it there. And the second perspective would be from the government side also, to kind of make the awareness possible on a regular basis, so that it reaches far wide and gets to those consumers around it. Because again, that's on the prevention side of it helps there.
In fact, one of the things that we're trying to do is make more and more information available on our site, so that the consumer, you can't reach out to hundreds and thousands of consumers, but if you can make everything available, at least we are giving them the tools. After that, if they use the tools to make an informed decision, that's good for them, right?
Well, it's as good as investing in a stock where somebody, or investing in some kind of a tip to say that it will increase. It's not the, because I think what's said as a consumer is actually it's small-time investor as well. It's not a consumer that we speak about. So that's also an area wherein I think some bit of demystification is required. In terms of what kind of complaints come across, and classify them accordingly.
Sure.
Prashant, this question is directed at you. So, what do you think this budget does to consumer sentiment? So, given where the real estate transactions have been over the last 1 year, and the anticipation before the budget of unanimously, so it is going to trigger the buying cycle.
We'd like to hear that also. So of course, I think the demand side, the customer demand has kind of picked up, over the last few months, and I think if you just look at the demand, which is reflected by the traffic that comes on our website as well as your website, it does reflect that the demand is there. Of course, what has happened is that the supply has completely dried out, as I shared. So the supply, if you look at 2 years back to today, it's almost 40% of what the supply was hitting the market. And the reason for that effectively is that the prices
in some areas have basically gone beyond the affordability of a consumer, and thus the price pressure is building up. And when the price pressure is building up, and the cost on the developer side, be it to do with land acquisition, to do with construction, those areas they are not being able to kind of manage to create the kind of price which is attractive for the customer. So we're seeing a lot of consumer demand, but they are not effectively kind of translating into closures. And so what needs to happen to actually trigger consumer demand is, of course, infrastructure which creates more linkages towards the suburbs where you have more affordable housing options. Possibly you can actually satisfy the buyers' needs by creating more closures towards the suburbs, or else there has to be, the industry has to kind of come forward and look at what are the dynamics of each micro market to say, if the price pressure is built up, then is it time to kind of take a look at prices and kind of discount prices to get more customers in. So in some micro markets, I think Achhe Din Aane Wale will happen only with some price discounts in whatever means and forms, which we have seen in certain micro markets already happening in Mumbai and some other places. So I think in the short term, I think that's what will basically trigger more closures. Or else, of course, we have to kind of divert the demand towards suburbs, and there I think infrastructure can play a key role in terms of creating more cities, creating better urban infrastructure, creating more amenities. So that would be the case.
Taking the sentiment thing one step further, I thought, yeah.
There's another point, Prashant, which actually was in the budget today. The mutual fund units now are going to be considered long term after 36 months and 20% tax. Same as real estate. So you should sell real estate against mutual funds and tell them to buy real estate. You get a better return after 3 years.
I think one limited point again would be that from sentiment point of view, saying that because of the changes that have been brought in from individual taxation point of view, so I mean almost like 15,000 to 36,000 is the impact which comes in for individual perspective there in terms of additional cash that will be available in that. And if you just projected, we had almost like 3 crores taxpayers, from a 5 lakh below kind of a category. This is a 2012 number, so must have also increased around that. So this gives you a astounding almost like 55,000 crores of extra money which is now in the system with the people.
So
actually, Chitamba, the ball is in your court.
I know. I'm ready to throw
That's a share of the wallet.
I think you're just giving this feeling to Gitamba. अच्छे दिन आ गए। लेकिन limited point is that the spare cash that you are counting is going to be spent against the inflation.
Correct.
It is that dhaniya wala who's going to take away that cash. So Gitambar will again be looking for customers sitting in the window,
Good point.
Just a 1.5 to 2 lakh exemption which might be more.
In fact, Vaibhav, I think I'd like to bring you into the conversation again. If I look at what consumers have been asking before the budget speech was made, most of them wanted to know, will there be any difference in the interest housing finance interest rates, and whether there will be any changes in the standard exemptions. Now we've seen that it's happening, but the consumer sentiment actually went down because a lot of consumers, at whatever point they buy their house, when the taxes go, when the rates go up, they pay more. When the rates go down, they get no benefit. So they would rather wait and watch and see what is the best time. Do you agree with that, Vaibhav?
No, I think they would buy the house, without waiting for, or anticipating those changes. And now that, this ceiling for deduction is increased from 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs. I think that will encourage a lot of people, to look at it again. There is one more interesting change which has taken place, or the proposed change. So probably a lot of us in the panel would know about this deduction under Section 54. And so the 2 clarifications have come out relating to Section 54. Which are very relevant. So one is, earlier the law was that, you have to invest. So So if you sell a house, which is a long-term capital asset, meaning you are held it for more than 36 months, and you earn capital gains, then to avoid paying capital gains tax, you reinvest the amount of gain in another residential house. Now, the word used in the law was a residential house. You have to invest in a residential house, and the taxpayers have been taking a stand that a residential house could mean multiple residential houses also. And there were some judicial pronouncement wherein it was held that even if you buy more than one house, you still stand to get the tax benefit on the multiple investments. Now the law is the proposal is that the tax benefit will be restricted to purchase of one house. So if you purchase multiple houses from out of that gain, then the deduction can be only restricted to the amount invested in one house. So that is one. And two, the house should be located in India. Earlier the law was silent, and a lot of individuals took a stand that since the law is silent, even if I buy a house in some other country, I'm still eligible to claim that benefit. So the proposed change is you have to buy a house only in India to be able to claim the tax benefit.
Yeah. Mona, right now land is a state subject. Real estate, a large part of it is in the purview of the states. The budget that the finance minister has presented, how long does it take to be translated into regulation in the states? Do the states take this as a direction, or is it very different? What do you think in the present political climate?
So the land is a state subject and will remain a state subject. I think so I don't think that changes to that extent.
Yeah.
The difference I think it happens is because the central government is moving more towards e-governance and all that, cleaning up the things. So maybe the state government can also take a cue from there and move more towards ease of doing business, and every state also wants to be investor friendly. So they have to take the cues from the central government, but I don't think it can force anything.
But do you think that it is the direction is such that the states will find it beneficial to implement these changes, so that when you buy a house, you're not buying a house in India, you're actually buying it in a locality in a state in India, and wherever you buy, you have to go to different the legal process, the policies are different, and there is no one policy. So the consumer really is not buying in India, he's buying according to the state laws. Do you see those getting cleaned up?
I think probably not. I mean, I don't think this will probably lay down that roadmap. It's again left to the state governments, and like Dr. Swaroop had also said, implementation, execution. That's really where the central government and the state governments need to get their act together. So it's the will at the state level also to follow a certain path.
And one positive is that the Prime Minister has actually called state urban development ministers and secretaries, and actually said that let's work in the same direction. So probably that is
they've taken a pledge. They had a 25-point agenda where they agreed to change things as they are today. Better governance and single window, and let's hope they do it. I'm sure they will.
But for the consumer, I think the biggest panacea of this entire thing would be title insurance. The day title insurance hits India, then for a consumer it doesn't matter whether he's sitting in which locality, which state in the country, and buying the piece of house, land, apartment, whatever it is, because title insurance is pretty much a guarantee that things are in place.
Would you like to elaborate for the benefit of all the viewers who are currently logged in? How does title insurance work, and what does it require?
So essentially, abroad, what happens is when you buy a house or an apartment, then you actually buy an insurance, much like your life insurance. You can buy a title insurance, and that's with insurance companies abroad who basically guarantee the authority of the title. So essentially, when you are booking an apartment or when you are buying a house, the biggest question for the consumer is, does he spend time understanding each and every regulation of the state? Does he spend time understanding what is the policy, what are the loopholes and what not? Or he just goes and buys the insurance which basically kind of gives him a guarantee that things are in place. and that's the biggest panacea, because every consumer cannot spend time and hire the services of a lawyer to understand the entire implications of buying a house in terms of what are the issues with the title of the house.
In that context, when you look at the Delhi and Punjab, let's say for example, say, the other state also kind of in some way done that. But I think there's a change to look at the consumer as more of a customer, from a revenue perspective. And now when you go for a stamp duty registration, kind of a process around it, you've got a more banking-like atmosphere getting created, and you've got appointments available. You could go there and book an appointment and then go for that registration. There's no that much of hassle that you go through compared to the earlier processes that we were having around it. And that's also stemming from the fact that there is a digitization effort which has gone in, from a title perspective there. So if the states go through it properly, and those because this is a kind of process which has been on but has not been completed by the states properly. But if that gets done, then you can actually on the net surf and understand that the history of the property, what transactions has had earlier. So title insurance is like, of course, a positive step or interim step, I would say, till the point that we get to this digitization in a fuller manner. And of course, subsequently you have much more surety that in the first place itself you're going right. And there are very standard documents now available as well, from a deed perspective, which these governments have been offering around it. So I think that that's a mindset change because of the fact that it's one of the largest revenue generators for the state. So they just have to kind of take it forward and move along there. Almost like just look at it about like Punjab alone itself. There's more like 12 lakh transactions happen. Stamp duty perspective there. So and so high value as well. So that's something which can change the really outlook for everyone.
Rajesh has just joined us in the discussion. Rajesh, how do you see consumer sentiment, and have you seen any change in consumer sentiment in the last year since the Modi government got elected? And take a note.
See, actually everybody was eyeing on this today's budget, at what policy they are going to announce.
Yeah.
So today's budget has boosted the sentiment. Gentleman was talking that he has got some 20,000-30,000 rupees in hand, making limit 1.5 to 2 lakhs, but I am really afraid PF limit has also increased from 1 to 1.5 lakhs.
So
whatever he is going to save there, he is going to invest it. But still, budget is in positive sentiment, so we are expecting a better.
Okay, actually, you did raise a point, and we didn't elaborate on that. Where the supply is, it's not that there is no supply in the market. There is plenty of supply in the market. Where the demand is, probably there's not enough supply in those categories. How do you mix and match the demand versus supply? I think this is something that really concerns the consumer. And if the supply matches the demand profiles, I think the consumer sentiment automatically will take a turn. How do you see this happening? Gitamit? Do developers misread their consumer markets?
Not really. The thing is, today we are all operating the same segment, right, unfortunately. Yes. And we are mostly wooing the same consumer. And so much so that a lot of youngsters, maybe some people sitting with us here also have 2 to 3 properties with them, because some are for investment, some are for rental, one is for themselves, which is a good thing, I don't deny it. But then because of that and the price point that we guys actually operate on, and because of maybe our costs or whatever, the audience has become repetitive. It's the same person who we are appealing to. So if we don't shift from, there's this pyramid, and we are all targeting the same part of the pyramid. So innovation would be today to look at a different segment within the pyramid, go down or maybe go up. So people try going up to luxury, but that's very, very tricky. Because
that's very crowded.
That's very crowded, and today whatever was luxury yesterday, today it's a necessity, it's an accepted, it's a given. So I would say for us as an industry, we should explore a little below where we were targeting.
Why don't you do that? There must be many challenges.
Because
right?
It's not attractive. That's what we were asking the government. It's huge, but let us, give us some support over there. Yeah. We would all like to operate. Look at Noida Extension, for example, or. Noida Extension today is a case in point. It's a wonderful example.
Hi, Mr. Suresh. Hello, Mr. Suresh. Hello, Mr. Suresh. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hi, Mr. Suresh.
Hello, sir.
Hello. Mr. Suresh, can you hear us? Mr. Suresh? Yes, yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry.
So Noida extension is a case in point, and let me tell you, most of the sales of there are through end users.
Yeah.
You can speak to.
Mr. Suresh, can you hear us?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Suresh. Welcome to the discussion. We've got Rajesh Goel from the RG Group. We've got Gitambar Anand. We've got Prashant Agarwal from Prop Tiger. We've got Neeraj Bansal from KPMG. Mona Chabra from Ernst & Young. Dr. Swaroop is here with us. Vishesh from Times of India Editorial. And Sudhir Pai, who's the head of Magic Bricks. All of us are in the boardroom. We'll be discussing.
It's a pleasure to join for the distinguished panel.
Mr. Suresh, Gitambar is just talking about why everybody is building in the same category and why one category is very crowded and another left very completely vacant.
So the opportunity which even government knows is in that space which is below what we are targeting.
Yeah.
And even below, because as we go to the base, it's a huge market.
Right.
We are, time and again, that is why we are appealing to government to please make it attractive for us to go to that space.
Yeah.
Now, Noida extension at 3,000 rupees a square foot, I can tell you that none of the developers are making money. You know, they're working on 100 or 200 rupees a square foot margin.
Right.
That is much less than what a contractor makes. So they're doing it because it's a commitment. They had bought that land, they sold the apartments cheaper, very cheap because of the competition, because of market dynamics. So therefore,
because they made more land available, right?
that supply was unleashed.
Yeah.
But the good news was that it was bought
Yeah.
by end users. It was not bought so much by investors, but it was bought by people who want to live there.
Right.
So therefore, the simple solution to the entire business would be to make that space below this space where we are working, you know, and even below, right down at the base of the pyramid, more attractive for the industry to work in.
So what are three things that a government can do to trigger that movement?
They can get.
Your call. Please stay on the line.
Neha, there should be one mute button which you can press and unpress. We have a mute. Yeah.
So they should first and foremost, which you know, we've been, they have already.
Yeah, Mr. Suresh. Are you there, Mr. Suresh? Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Suresh, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a minute.
I can
Gitambar is just completing his point, then we'll come to you. Just a minute. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So first and foremost, they've already identified and quantified the area of that property and below which we need to go to and build.
Yes.
For that, we need them to give us a time-bound approval.
Yeah.
So if I am working in that space, I should submit my drawings and maybe my change of land use, my non-agricultural certificate or whatever, and I should get my approvals. It should be deemed sanctioned in 30 days.
Right.
They can, you know, it has to be, they have to be fleet-footed over there. Otherwise, I won't go down.
If you don't confirm, they can probably take
Absolutely,
punitive action, but
absolutely.
it should be a deemed approval.
See, I know the law, I know the bylaws, I know my titles, I know if I'm not conforming, if I'm intentionally cheating,
Yeah.
they have full right to penalize me tomorrow.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's going to hurt me even more because I'll have invested a lot more. So a single window clearance with a time-bound approval system is the need of the hour over there in that space. Second thing is that I must have a fiscal incentive to go and build there. Because again, the margins are so thin that I'm virtually not earning anything. Because
either the land has to be cheaper or you should have a tax.
it won't happen because see, once if I go and ask for government land in such spaces, it will take time. So I have to go and acquire because the land acquisition bill is figured in, and that is another subject on its own.
Yeah.
So if I am going as the private sector and buying land on my own, very well, and I'm asking for my approvals over there, that is my cost. I'm land. You know, if it suits me, I'll buy over there. If it doesn't, I'll do a market survey and I'll see what price I can sell my property at. So then, therefore, I must have a fiscal incentive. That is why we had asked for infrastructure status for those houses where we would be operating. And they could have given us an ATI exemption in that space.
Yeah.
That would have really, really attracted us because we're straight away looking at a 30%, 33% saving of time.
Housing development to be integrated as integrated, self-contained cities where economic development, work area development comes in the one segment of the thing, and the housing and social infrastructure comes together.
Yeah.
as you're aware, India's population is going to already double from 28 crores to around 56 crores. Where are you going to take the additional 28 crores of population coming? It cannot be, you can either go vertical by increasing FAR and all that SSI. The other one is to go horizontally, reduce satellite cities and towns, whether you call the 100 new cities or smart cities or twin cities. That's the only way we'll be able to take care of the development needs. I think it's a very positive aspect, but this is an area where we have to work very closely with state government. State government requires the same amount of synergy to work on this particular initiative.
Especially since he's already, absolutely. Especially since he's already said that there are some corridors that he mentioned in the budget, which was the Bangalore-Mumbai corridor, the Bangalore-Chennai corridor, the Mysore belt. He's talked about the Telangana and Andhra Pradesh getting substantial.
That looks like the last one is that of Andhra, especially from Vijayawada to Visakhapatnam, the Vijayawada to Tenali segment, those will catch up in a big way. But my only concern was earlier the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, around 28 cities were identified, but only around 7 has come after about 7 years time period.
Even so they haven't come really. Even the 7 have not come.
Gujarat or Maharashtra, this is forward looking. I can expect Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh also to take off in this new town because they have to identify land. This land acquisition and becomes a very major issue in this new township development. So, it's a welcome sign. The limited issue, we got to put land and infrastructure development also in the same, way of working with the state government. To that extent, the recent conference the Housing and Urban Development Minister had with all the state government ministers to have a joint, they have a joint declaration brought out, should give us some hope that they will work together.
Yes, absolutely. Dr. Swarup, I think here this is a good time to bring you back in. You're talking about transport corridors which will kind of trigger real estate development or industrial township development. You're talking about economic drivers that will make the cities viable. You have something to add here?
Sir, how are you? This is Swarup.
I'm doing well, Swarup, I'm doing well.
Very nice.
Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, same here, sir, and it's a great pleasure. Well, my first comment is on the smart cities. The 100 smart cities. The total amount that has been allocated is 7,060 crores.
To start with.
Yeah, to start with, of course. Now, if you divide 7,060 by 100 smart cities, let's say, to begin with, even to do the preparatory work, it works out to approximately 70 crores of rupees. Geetambar would agree with me that almost 20 apartments that he sells. So it's a token. It's just the intent. You know, the intent is good. But you're talking about going to Antarctica, sitting on a rat, something like that. So this 7,060 crores of rupees also will be lost in the maze of activities that will happen.
Unless you prioritize.
Unless you prioritize, unless otherwise you multiply this by at least 5 and say that we are going to acquire the land at such and such places. That's the first thing. That's my first comment. Second, talk of the real estate funds. They cannot get into the rental housing. Rental housing doesn't work. It is not economic. The tradition is, as a matter of fact, if we look at it frankly today, most of the middle and upper middle class consumers, they have more than one houses or 2 houses or flats or whatever you have there, and a flat which costs intrinsically about 3 crores of rupees can fetch at best the rent of 25,000 rupees or 30,000 rupees. Now, which is that fund which is going to put in the money into such kind of a venture which can't even fetch 2% as the return, and somebody needs to subsidize it? So obviously, the real estate funds will now be going towards the new smart cities. That is something that is going to be the viable mode of activity. So there has to be some mechanism that the government has to put in. If you recall what I said, the intents are fine, but we have to now put the whole thing. The dots have to be put together, then only this budget can become one of the most fantastic budgets. Come to the second very important point. Lot of it depends. When it comes to real estate and housing, a lot of it depends on the state governments. And let's not forget that the state government, or a state government, typical state government, one of the largest sources of revenue which offsets all kind of vagaries that they keep on indulging in is basically the real estate. Look at Haryana, look at Delhi. The development authorities, so to say, are the richest departments of any state government.
They are the biggest speculators
They
in
are
the
the biggest
market.
speculators. And now here comes the beautiful thing. Pitambar was crying and wailing and saying and asking for all kind of tax offs and things like that. As an engineer, I go to the brass tacks. Let's look at the kind of structure of the total pricing which makes it so prohibitive. And this is precisely what I have been telling to all my friends in the real estate, that is not going to fly. The total cost of saving, that is 3,000 rupees, how much is the cost of construction? Not more than 1,000 rupees.
No.
Or 1,500 rupees.
For a ground plus 70?
Yeah. How much?
2,000 rupees.
No.
Not like that.
No, you are not doing it. I am saying only the cost of construction.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 2,000 rupees.
Yeah.
So you are trying to tell me that for 1,000 rupees, you are buying the land which is costing 1 crore of rupees an acre or 2 crores of rupees an acre today.
No, not now.
I am talking of now.
It's costing much
That is
more.
all luxury segment.
No, sir, even if you go to the, even if you go
Where the
to,
land cost is, where the land cost is as high as 90%.
Sir,
we are not, we
sir,
should
sir,
have
believe-
waste your time on that.
sir, believe you me, even if you go to the backwaters of Palwal, you will not get the land less than 1 crore, crore and a half rupees an acre. The limited point I am trying to make here is that the element to the cost of land
Is very high.
is very, very high.
In the Indian
And
context,
prohibitively
it's
high.
roughly about 90% of your cost.
Yes.
Actually,
And-
in current
Yeah,
scenario,
yes,
is
So
land.
that's the point I am making. And now, if you are asking for a subsidy on that 90%, who's the bread that you are cutting into? It is the state government. The state government is not charitable enough. It's not the central government who can possibly provide you any amount of subsidies or SOPs which are going to make it even and make it affordable.
We are looking at income tax exemption, that's all.
That's going to be a very small.
No, that is the major. 80IA is a major exemption that we are looking at. Like 80IV, it's a 30% exemption on your total earnings.
What I am trying to tell you, Pitambar, that the flat that is to be sold to someone who is asking for it, I am not talking of those who are not asking for it anymore. You only said that it's a repetitive situation.
Yeah.
A young person who is making 30,000 rupees a month is looking for a flat. None of these properties that you are building can be sold to this particular chap. He is looking at a house which is costing 12 lakhs of rupees or 10 lakhs of rupees. And there is no house that can be given to him for 10 lakhs of rupees in today's context.
Dr.
Now, this can only come when the state government says, yes, we are not going to be speculative, we will provide the land which is going to be
So the
almost
state
like-
brings the land component,
Absolutely.
allows
It
the
never
private
happened.
sector.
With the land acquisition bill, तो कभी होगा ही नहीं. It never happened.
We are talking of an impossible situation.
My
But-
choice is okay.
But while we talk about, yes, land is an issue. Yes, there are problems. But I think there are some things that we have to look at here. If you have new developments happening, and there is a lot of new development that is slated to happen, maybe as on the outskirts of existing cities or along transport corridors, when they happen, one of
There the
the,
land cost will be lower.
Much lower.
yeah.
There the land cost will be lower.
Yes, and the problem with our industry and with the intelligentsia of our industry is that we only look at the 4 metros. There is a whole country where you get land much cheaper. And we have bought land in tier 4, tier 3, which is much cheaper.
Right.
And 3,000 rupees is a huge achievement. We are selling it at 2,500 rupees because over the construction we are not going vertical. It's a G+1 or a G+2, and therefore land is much cheaper. So we are giving a house for 12 lakhs, Dr. Swaroop, 10 lakhs, below 10 lakhs in Bulandshahr. Beautiful colony. You go and see it. You will see it's as good. The infrastructure is as good as any of our complexes over here.
Pitambar, I quite agree with you.
So that is
But
where
the
I am
guy-
asking for
but-
the
but
income
the guy,
tax,
but the guy
APIA.
who is living in Bulandshahr
Ji.
does not need the houses as much as the guys who are living here in
Why,
Delhi.
sir?
That's the
Why
point.
not?
No,
Why
no,
not?
Dr. Swaroop, that is typical, that is not right. When we look at what the profile of the buyers who are asking for houses, it comes from all over the
All
country.
over.
And in fact, in the last 1 year, what we've seen is the amount of business that's growing in the tier 2, 3 and 4 cities
Huge.
is huge. We've ourselves spread into at least 30 to 35 new cities in the last 1.5 years. So obviously there's a lot of development happening. One of the things that I thought would be important is you're talking about access to funds, you're talking about development. Now, how important is master? I think somebody did touch about the master planning aspect. To speed up the approvals, to speed up your construction process itself, we need meticulous urban planning where the urban infrastructure and the real estate development are well synthesized, integrated. Do you think this is going to happen?
If I can add, what is required is off-site infrastructure connectivity to these new places which Pidambar mentioned. If you are able to connectivity through fast road and get power, water connectivity, the remaining thing on-site can be looked after by each of the developer. There's no problem inside water distribution, your sewerage and your power is required, water is required, and fast connectivity. If they are able to get that from the government, I'm sure many land parcels will get opened up. That is where the real answer is, where the land and development cost still should be around 25 to 30% of the total cost of the house, and the balance 60 to 70% going for the construction cost. Otherwise you are in trouble. The moment land development cost becomes more than 50-60%, it is very difficult. So you have to bring that down.
Yeah. And do you think do you see this happening in any states?
Yes, I'm able to see large number of the new ones, especially now it's going to come in Maharashtra and the Naina region, 650 square kilometers of area. That comes to 65,000 hectares, 150,000 acres of land getting opened up immediately for development. This is going to second New Bombay. Even the New Bombay for the 40 years was around 340 square kilometers. This is about 600 square kilometers of area coming. Now, that type of initiatives, if it comes, and also around Bangalore area, outside areas in the Kengeri, Hoskote, Yelanga region, those are three tri-star satellite town development. It will come in a big way. Chennai, Maramalai Nagar, Manali area, and Oragadam region, where the automobile hub. All these areas are coming up with substantial amount of areas where the land component and development component should be around 35%, 40%. Don't take the case of 90% where the land cost is there. We shouldn't even be talking about that case at all. That's not luxury segment of housing, where 1 crore plus acre land. Obviously, you can't do any housing for this.
No, sir.
Connectivity, water, and power. That's the three things I want. Connectivity, water, and power. If that can be organized in a big way, new lands will get opened out about transport corridor or economic corridor or industrial corridor or whichever corridor you want to talk about. That's the only way solution. As I said, population is doubling by 28 to 56 crores. Total India, urban land is only 4% of the total land mass. That 4% has to increase to 8%. Where does the additional 4% land come from the India's land mass? Only in the new neighborhood areas or satellite cities or twin cities. We've got to put all our pressure on that.
May I take the discussion in one direction which is very close to my heart and which I think a lot of our consumers are adopting now, which is data. Till now, the consumer has operated on zero data. Whether it is the benchmark pricing of properties, whether it is checking out approvals, we had no means of doing that. When you or looking at where they should buy, what kind of returns they should look for, what is the connectivity they should look for, what are the factors that he should be looking for. This is something that the consumer had very little access to. And more than the consumer, I think what the state governments have never looked at any kind of parameters to say this much housing should come along this corridor and we will sanction it because it is already ready to receive this volume of housing. Whether it's in terms of roads, in terms of infrastructure, water, power and the civic amenities and so on. I would like
I can assure you onto something.
Yeah.
And with due apologies to Mr. Suresh, when he says that 1 crore of rupees an acre is the cost of luxury kind of segment, and Gitambar says that he has purchased cheaper land.
Dr. Swarup, Gitambar is going to leave us to run to a studio.
Just a minute. Let me tell you, 22 states, right in the interiors, I have been checking up the lands to set up my own centers. And I have not found the land anywhere less than 50 lakhs of rupees an acre, 50 to 60 lakhs.
Actually, sir, you come with me.
You give it to me.
Okay, but final, since
Good development with products ranging from around 25 lakhs of a flat and 50 lakhs a flat, we can do it. Still do that. Even at 50 lakhs an acre, we can do that particular product.
Mr. Suresh, we'll take
number of products.
We'll take one round of final comments from our visitors who are going to leave us. Gitambar, one closing.
Yeah, I'm also going to leave into another portion. Is there anything that you want me to push it before I leave?
No, Mr. Suresh. Thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gitambar, one closing remark from you.
Well, I think this is a very positive step forward, and you know, if this present government keeps having this thought process for the future, then happy days are here again.
Neeraj.
Like I said, I think it's a good directional budget, and the unfinished agenda on the indirect taxes is something which is, like I said, a clear disappointment. So one would look at that part that should get brushed up. I mean, some changes if possible during the year, and certainly in the March 15 budget, that getting really clearly specified, well laid out, and also the what we discussed around the infrastructure status aspect of it, because that's something again would really help in the easing of the liquidity aspect of it there, and also bring about right credibility to the status around it. And last I would say is that point that from this budget perspective, that I think what it has done is that it has at least given that strong push to the sector which some way we were not seeing at all. So at least from a sentiment point of view, I think it's done a good job on that side.
Thank you so much. I think Gitambar and Neeraj both have to leave for this thing. Mona, would you like to give your final thoughts?
So I think the smart cities and everything, I think it has to be cognizant of what is the economic activity going on along with it. How do you see it?
You got to give me that land, then only the happy days will be there for me. I'm telling you. Don't show the land right in the middle of Ganga.
That also may be very valuable.
No, there's no land there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I was saying that basically the smart cities and everything has to be cognizant of what is the economic activity associated with it. So it has to be integrated. That's the only way real estate play can succeed. And the reason that we've had not so much success with our past SEZ policy is also because some of the SEZs they developed that economic activity, some did not, and that's why it just became a real estate play in some of them. And that's why they kind of withered down, and we've seen a lot of denotification of SEZs happening. So I think it's a economic activity alongside which is very important for the real estate.
Absolutely. In fact, Chandigarh is a clear case in point where we've got so much residential housing around Chandigarh, where it's Zilapur, Mohali and so on. But the economic activity not taking off has been a big negative there. Yeah, absolutely. Prashant, how do you see the consumers reacting to a budget like this, especially real estate consumers?
So of course, as we started off, I think, if we basically look at the consumer, he definitely has some more money in his pocket to be able to kind of look at real estate investments. From a supply perspective, I think there are two things which have come out of this discussion. One is basically if you look at the inventory which is already available in the market to be sold, which is upwards of 5 lakh units, which are available in the top 8 metro cities. The funding situation for the developer has to improve. In some markets, maybe pricing pressure has to kind of lead towards reduced pricing for the consumer in terms of the unit sizes to be able to get more demand, leading to closures. As far as the affordable housing discussion that we had, I think that's a great way forward because the consumer, if you look at that segment, is completely unaddressed. And as we create more cities which are economically viable, more and more consumers would be able to kind of live in these cities and still be able to commute to better economic centers if the connectivity is good, or else just work at in the new smart cities.
Rajesh?
I want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
When we are talking about that, we are talking about affordable housing. Let us say 60 square meter house. Our laws doesn't permit to construct that type of housing. Suppose you are talking Noida and Greater Noida. In Noida, I have constructed a tower having area of 50 square meter. But that attract my density. They have fixed up a density. What is their density now? That whether you are making 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom, they will count 5% per flat, and per hectare they are fixed up. So they have to relax that norm technically. That if someone is making 1 bedroom flat, that density they are going to provide double. So our laws, even everyone is crying, government is crying, we are crying that, and there is great demand. I have constructed around 600 houses in my Noida Sector 120 project, and all are sold out. And people who have bought, they don't want any discount because that is coming in their budget. So when we start the booking, that cost was around 12 to 13 lakhs rupees. And even today demand is there. But since our density does not permit, we can't construct that.
But Noida, Greater Noida has a better density norm and ratio than maybe Gurgaon.
Gurgaon is the worst hit. Gurgaon is the worst.
Faridabad and
Gurgaon, Haryana is the worst hit.
Faridabad is rare. Faridabad, you don't have very heavy density.
but you can't build smaller units in Faridabad, right? There also density is a big issue.
In Haryana, you can't build area less than 1500 square feet.
That's right.
Whereas in Noida, Greater Noida, we can go up to 1100 square feet.
Because density limitation.
And actually, if you want to bring 10 lakh, 12 lakh cost of housing,
So we need to consider 500, 600 square feet area.
Absolutely.
And that law doesn't permit.
Right.
Even today, lot
That's
of
a good point, and we should keep highlight that.
even today, lot of promoters would be very happy to construct 500, 600 square feet of area because that is easily sellable. See, if you remember, Super Tech first project, Eco Village 1.
Yeah.
It was very highlighted because he sold 1 bedroom flat at Noida extension in 7 to 8 lakhs of rupees. But again, there is a problem, he cannot construct the entire project with that density. So these authorities, if they are permitting high density, even in Noida, Greater Noida, builder would love to do that.
So even the Haryana government in its affordable housing policy had addressed that, for that particular segment, the density norms. So they had, relaxed them for those particular projects.
But even those relaxations didn't allow you to build a 500, 600 square feet apartment.
Yeah. No, it's
unit.
like
They were larger. I think currently the size you can build there very comfortably would be around 2,000. 12. And this is one way of addressing the housing shortage. The other thing that I thought is, if you link it with what happened in the rail budget, the rail budget talked about intercity connectivities, you talked about your EMUs going up. You see, peripheral, essentially driving development to the periphery and still integrating it with the mother city through high-speed transport networks. Do you think this will take off, or is that a pipe dream?
No. See, look here, there is nothing which you can call as pipe dream. Everything is possible.
Right.
Provided you have that will to do it.
Right.
Now, if you do not have the will, nothing is going to happen.
But taking the two budgets that we had, the rail budget and the union budget, at least the right things have been highlighted.
I personally feel that what they would have done, picked up few limited areas rather than spreading the butter all over the bread. Some limited areas, and they would have basically sorted that out.
Right.
That is the first thing. Let's say we are not talking 100 cities springing up overnight. Everybody knows that it's going to take 15, 20 odd years before the city is really established. It's almost like 25 years now that you have Gurgaon in the shape in which it is. So that's the time that has to be given. Then only things will happen. But fact of the matter is that at least 1 or 2 cities, they must be, put in the right of list. Connectivity, bullet train. I mean, I really love that idea of putting 1 bullet train. Bombay, Ahmedabad at least is going to be a demonstrable model. One is not talking about 30 bullet trains going all over. That's a good idea. But then again, there is a big if there. The rest of the investment either has to come from FDI or it has to be a public-private partnership kind of a situation.
Where you have disputed.
Where we have the problems. So you are walking in the minefield actually, and then you have our friends there who will, on the drop of the hat, they will come out and they will say, okay, I mean, how come you are privatizing, how come you are giving the national wealth, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So time only will tell how exactly it is going to happen. But
well, actually, I think the positive to highlight here is that the intent is fine, and a couple of things that consumers had asked for. I think there was somebody who asked about eco something, and there was somebody else who had mentioned solar. both of which have found their way into the budget. Do you think these are things that the budget will have a positive impact on? Just budget announcements, will it have a positive impact?
It's fashionable. It's fashionable to talk about solar, fashionable to talk about, let's look at the kind of power shortage that you have in this country. Obviously, no country has the kind of power generation. You do not have the kind, see, hardcore power generating units must come. You need to have solar power, but solar power in no country can really meet the demand that one is talking about, and especially in a country which is basically seeing a population growth.
At least places like Hyderabad, where you're starting net metering. It doesn't mean that you're supplementing your power with solar power, but if you have solar power and you push it into the grid, and it's the storage that is more expensive rather than just generation. If you can push it back into the grid pays you for the power that you're pushing into the grid. And there are people who have negative bills, which means that the grid has paid you so much that it's a minus 14 or something like that. Your bills come to that. Isn't that an applicable model? Do you think something like this can be pushed, especially since it is already a policy statement that we are boosting solar power generation or equipment to be manufactured in the country?
First of all, the life cycle cost assessment has to be done. If somebody says that solar power is all kind of, the outfit that you have there, that ends up polluting the things. So nobody has authentically done any kind of an audit on that. Nobody can say simply, it's almost like those CFL lamps, everybody thought that they are the last thing on the face of earth. But basically, when you start talking about the waste that was going in, so what I'm saying is, it's a good idea. It's a good idea, worth exploring, worth putting in. But it's not something on which you can really rely to solve our problem. It's almost like nuclear energy. Everybody knows that, the national needs of power cannot be met with nuclear energy for that matter. Everywhere they are seriously thinking as to whether to use it or not, and especially in Europe for that matter. So the only two viable means that you have are the fossil fuel or you have the hydro. The rest of the things are peripherals. You can always have some small tweaks here and there, but the bread and butter is that.
Definitely, it's augmentation which is there with solar power. It's not a replacement, but we've seen, thermal power and the coal linkage problems that we've had, and the environmental issues, and the approvals not being there for mining and stuff. So that's why the power deficit worsened. So if there is augmentation, even that has started kickstarting. So if you have that along with the solar power, so it's both need to so it's augmentation, I think, really, which is positive.
We've got Naveen Raheja here with us. So we've actually had some CREDI and no issues. So NAREDCO's perspective on the budget, how do you view it? What do you think are the positives? If there's anything that you think
we look at it largely positive budget, which will actually help real estate industry, because most of the issues have been addressed when it comes to direct issues.
Right.
Other than only, I think one thing which is left out is the online clearance mechanism, which we have been demanding, so that the projects can be cleared within 1 or 2 months instead of 2 to 3 years, and through a multiple window system and compliance mechanism, which is a hell of a cost to the industry.
The number in fact talked about deemed approval so that you could take it forward.
Something like that. So we have been fighting for that, and it was a very small amount of investment was required. If we had just to prepare well debated and well studied guidelines, that this is the way that we can bring in all clearances under one master plan system and one system of clicking, and they can all be put on software, and you can move on to a digitization of the land record, wherever you have to do a project, you have to just map it through the master plans, and this is the project which can be undertaken on this land, and once you have taken the ownership, you can just fill in the online and get your clearances online itself and start your project. If that could be done with a very, I think, small investment, won't need even 15-20 crores at the most for developing software.
But the implementation is at the state levels, right?
And implementation is at the state level. So bringing all people together, you can at least start with issuing a guideline.
Yeah.
After all, our construction guidelines are NBC. Every state follows it.
Yes.
So this can also be a clearance guideline for projects.
To be incorporated in the national
So if
budget.
somebody does not do it, some state does not do it, at least there will be open debate on it. That why you are not doing it, which is an online clearance mechanism and system which is available, platform.
So you are recommending that the National Building Code should have a section on clearances and approvals?
No, I'm saying that something like National Building Code.
A similar document. Yeah.
Actually, the entire National Building Code also needs to be revisited. This is a very old thought, process-based document, direction, which is being followed by the states. What we need today, actually, I'm going just a little out of the budget, is every city and our future, what way it's going to be there approximately. We can always understand that what way the particular cities are going to develop. Based upon what exactly will be the total demographic dispersal and total different type of classes which will be there. This will be worker class, this will be white collar job with people, this will be the total number of people who will be self-employed. So you can map a city in advance, and then you should create a master plan to feed their requirement for next 30, 40, 50 years. So your master plan should be designed like that.
So your master plan, you're saying, should be planned for 50 years.
So they should be designed like that, taking into the viewpoint the future perspective of a growth for those, we're talking about smart cities.
Yeah.
So what they are going to be, how many workers will be there. So if there are going to be so many workers, then you need to have so many workers, so much of workers housing. Now NBC does not provide that. So if so much of your mid-segment housing or affordable housing, you can well define that my people will be having an approximate salary and income structure which will be falling into category wise, so many into this bracket, so many into this bracket, so many into this bracket. So accordingly you should do your master plannings, and accordingly you should not go by a book which was written 50 years ago.
Okay, Mr. Raheja, let's pick up the issue of master planning. It's significant and it has a lot of importance for our consumers who are logged in around the world right now. One of the things that when you're talking about a master plan, how is the master plan implementation to be effective? Who is to master plan that city, and after that, how do you ensure that people are allowed to secure land for development for various purposes? Today land is a big issue, right? If you're talking about any city and you're talking about the satellite city of that area, the minute the satellite city is announced, the land value roughly doubles in about 30-40 days. Clearly between Vijayawada and Guntur, it was announced that may probably be the capital, and in 45 days the land value doubled. So here either there has to be some mechanism where you can say that if in 50 years the city will grow to this level, then that land has to be earmarked and speculative acquisition is not allowed. How do you do that? Who's got to be in charge?
As I started my discussion, currently we are trying to create more and more sprawls.
Right.
And it is more aimed at how to convert land use and how to multiply value of the land. Then we bind it with, FAR and density norms to make it restricted.
Yes.
And then we are putting it, for a particular type of segment of people which are speculating into it. That percentage hardly 5 to 10%, which actually puts that investment, because this is national investment what we are putting in. Our country, there's a lot of people who are putting their money in their lifelong savings which we are putting. And then we are making it government and lying idle for years and decades to come. So this all
So you know that kind of hoarding of land, and
so
this is happening
there should be no hoarding of land. There should be no hoarding of properties.
Yeah.
There should be no speculative. This all can be avoided once you map the overall growth pattern of the country. This is our objective. That's how the country is going to grow. Is inclusive development all over the country, because you have to give employment into every state. You should not try to bring in all urbanization happening into limited cities.
So, do you think that this budget has been in that direction? It's an
The budget
interesting
has
thought.
been in that direction because they are developing 100 smart cities. That is actually to avoid further urbanization into overcrowded cities. By giving, the independent cities which give employment, which are manufacturing and growth hubs, and which provide all the facilities of a modern lifestyle integrated. So it's a very good vision. And on top of it, today we also found, find in the budget that they're developing smart industrial cities also.
Right.
So that is another addition which has been topped up into it.
So that smart industrial city, who acquires the land? This is going to be a big challenge, and it is a serious issue.
The main which I want to pass on the message of this is that we limit all these things into with the limited FAR and density norms which were devised 50 years ago. And
Yes, agreed, sir.
They have to be you have to make cities for the people.
Yeah.
By the people.
Yeah.
And to make it, you have to set things free. Now, why speculation on land happens? Because you are limiting FAR to 100, to 50, to 175. While in most of the developed cities in the world, the FARs are going beyond 800, even up to 2000. Here we limit it to 150, 100. So our land is underutilized.
So when you free FAR, and you allow vertical development, there is a certain amount of infrastructure facilities that go with it.
You have to map the city according to that.
Which means that when you plan for a city, and clear example is San Jose, where Cisco is the main driver. When Cisco wanted an additional tower, it was refused that till the city could actually augment its own infrastructure facilities to accept a new tower, because there was a multiplier effect. You would have so many people residing there, so many new vehicles coming in, and so on. Our cities don't plan in that fashion at all.
That's what I
Do
was
you
talking
think
about.
the 100 smart cities will change?
You plan today for 50 years of life.
So do we have
you
enough?
Can expand, let more and more people come, let more and more housing come, let more densification happen, but city has a carrying capacity. Should be like that.
Okay.
So we are today talking about speculative land prices. Once you set the things free, let free economy decide, let demand and supply decide.
Mona, you work with state governments on townships, do you?
No, I'm on the real estate, the private sector.
Okay. Now when you are advising the real estate sector, how is it that, you must be working across the country. Do you see different levels of expertise or understanding when it comes to different cities? Big cities, small cities, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3?
In terms of
the vision. The vision and the operations.
So I would say even if we look at the NCR, so the NCR is a good example where there was some vision that Delhi is getting too much capacity, and so we need to develop those suburban towns. And that's why your Gurgaon and Noida happened. And there again we have two sets of visions which happened actually. Gurgaon was entirely private.
Yeah.
So it was you acquire your land, you get it converted, you build out. Noida was the state, took over. So you have some kind of, I wouldn't say that it's the best examples of township development, but yeah, you have some models there. Whereas if we see, the players themselves would typically have similar, visions and ideology all over the country, because they would all try to, so I don't think there is that very long-term vision in the private sector due to capital constraints and various other issues. So that I think that vision tends to be from project to project rather than a longer-term vision because of natural business issues.
And as I heard it, Mr. Raheja saying that the city should plan for the future, never mind if the private sector plans for its immediate
the state has probably not a step back a little in terms of, overall development? I mean, Delhi was planned by the British and, so I think it's not focused so much, on township development in terms of all aspects. Even now, you will have some high, road networks being developed and you see them getting choked, within a year's time. So, that problem is there. But it has to be like Mr. Raheja said, when you plan for an airport, when you plan for the Delhi airport, you have to see ahead. You can't go as per the current traffic. So it has to be futuristic. Because of whatever constraints, it may not necessarily have been done in all cases in the past. In some cases, yes, it has been done.
If you leave the FAR and ST to unlimited, as long as there is, what a human being needs. Circulation, ventilation, fire protection, parking, environmental sustainability, this basic needs of a human being. Just ensure that. And let the developer do how much he can construct on it. As long as he thinks that there is a viability of selling and demand and supply. So if there is an unlimited supply available, there will be no speculation. And prices in competition will decide itself. So today we talk about heavy profit by builders, benefiting builders, speculation, money transaction, under table things happening, everything will go on.
Prashant, do you agree? Is that what the consumer is looking for? Allow a free, more supply to come in so that the market corrects itself.
It will correct itself.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that effectively takes care of the pricing. Of course, as Mr. Raheja said, of course the infrastructure has to be in place to be able to support.
Right. Rajesh, you have any comments to make? You think that with this budget there is any direction in which we are moving?
Basically, this budget has moved in a positive direction, and we can hope अच्छे दिन आने वाले.
Dr. Swaroop, अच्छे दिन आने वाले?
I told you. It will all depend. अच्छे दिन आए हैं या नहीं आए हैं या आएंगे या नहीं आएंगे. This will all have a direct bearing coming from the way we implement it.
Yes, absolutely.
If we don't implement it, then I have my own reservations. And if we implement it, तो अच्छे दिन तो फिर आ चुके.
And the people we have here are all the ones ones who should be implementing.
Allow us to implement. Allow us to implement. Allow India to work. India will be a work.
I think that's the right statement. Allow us to work. If they allow us to work, things will happen.
Vaibhav, what do you think? अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं? Vaibhav, are you there?
अच्छे दिन आ गए उनके.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us in our discussion. It was actually it's the beginning of a discussion. A budget is always a direction. A budget cannot be determined. It only shows you the direction in which a country is moving. The fact that two big stalwarts talking about Mr. Deepak Parekh and Mr. Kamath, as soon as the budget was over, they said that they listened. It's a very short time that they've had to put this budget together, but the fact is that they've listened to some of the noise that's been in the market. Whether that noise and the direction translates into something positive is something that I think collectively the entire industry and all the stakeholders have to work towards. And what we can do is, we actually represent the consumer, because the consumer comes to us in very large quantities, and the consumer is asking a lot of questions and many pertinent questions. Collectively we can answer them, and we would actually welcome if all of you could remain engaged with the consumer through, we can facilitate that. One of the important reasons why we do this activity, of course the televisions talk about it, we talk about a sector, and that is real estate and urban infrastructure as far as it impacts real estate. Something that every one of us is impacted by all the time. We live in a city, we work in a city, we travel in the city, and the consumers raise some pertinent questions, and I think to a very large extent all of you have been able to discuss and not answer them. I think you have been able to discuss them. Have we found answers? I don't think so. The purpose of a budget discussion is never to find the answers, but to raise the right questions, and we feel that we would like to thank all of you for making that effort. do remain engaged with us. Our teams will be in touch with you again. But we feel that this is a productive exercise, and the consumers should definitely be addressed.
We have to look at our long-term India.
That's right. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a small snack outside. Do join us for that.
You have left it on the table.
That is
If there was little space left in it.
that says अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं, बाहर अच्छे दिन आ गए।
आ गए हैं। आप आने वाले